You think Christmas has always been about store-bought sweets and convenience foods? Think again. Before modern shortcuts took over, holiday kitchens overflowed with homemade treasures that took days to prepare and carried generations of tradition. Let's dig into 30 old-school Christmas dishes no one seems to make anymore. Real homemade fruitcake was once the crown jewel of Christmas baking, a labor of love that began months before the holiday arrived. Families would soak dried fruits in brandy or rum for weeks, letting the alcohol preserve and flavor the currants, raisins, citron, and candied cherries. The batter itself was rich with molasses, brown sugar, spices, and enough eggs to bind everything together. Baked low and slow in tube pans or loaf tins, the cakes emerged heavy and fragrant, then were wrapped in cheesecloth soaked with spirits and stored in cool cellars. Every week, someone would unwrap the cake and brush on another layer of bourbon, feeding it like a living thing. By Christmas Day, the fruitcake had transformed into something dense, moist, and so intensely flavored that a thin slice satisfied completely. Families passed these cakes between generations, some recipes surviving 100 years. The modern joke version bears no resemblance to what grandmothers actually made. Boiled custard was the Christmas drink that arrived in punch bowls and crystal cups, a silky smooth beverage that warmed both hands and hearts during the holiday season. Unlike store-bought eggnog, this custard was cooked slowly on the stovetop, with patient cooks stirring constantly to prevent curdling while eggs, sugar, and whole milk transformed into something velvety. The process required attention. Too much heat and the eggs would scramble, too little and the custard stayed thin. Grandmothers knew exactly when to remove the pot from the heat, that moment when the mixture coated a wooden spoon and held its shape. Vanilla and nutmeg were added at the end, filling kitchens with the scent of the season. The custard was served cold in small cups, sometimes with bourbon for adults. Children waited eagerly for their share, knowing boiled custard meant Christmas had truly arrived. Families made gallons, sharing with neighbors and bringing it to church gatherings where it disappeared within minutes. Mincemeat pie carried centuries of tradition into American Christmas celebrations, though few modern cooks would recognize what originally filled those flaky crusts. The authentic filling combined chopped beef or venison with sweet, apples, dried fruits, brown sugar, and a generous pour of brandy, a preservation method dating back to medieval England. The meat broke down during long cooking, melding with fruits and spices until the filling became something entirely new. Families would prepare mincemeat in autumn, storing it in crocks where it aged and developed complexity. By Christmas, the mixture had transformed into a rich filling, balancing sweet, savory, and boozy notes. The pies were baked in shallow tins, their crusts crimped with care, and sometimes decorated with pastry cutouts. Each household had their own recipe, some heavier on meat, others emphasizing fruit, but all sharing that distinctive spiced warmth. Mincemeat pies were served at every holiday gathering, their unusual flavor a mark of the season. Plum pudding with hard sauce was the dramatic finale to Victorian and early American Christmas dinners, a dessert demanding weeks of preparation that arrived flaming with brandy. Despite the name, no plums appeared. The term referred to dried fruits like raisins, currants, and candied peel studding the dense, steamed cake. Suet provided richness, breadcrumbs gave structure, and eggs bound everything with brown sugar, spices, and enough spirits to preserve the pudding for months. The mixture was packed into cloth-lined molds and steamed for hours, then stored until Christmas, when it was steamed again. The hard sauce, butter whipped with powdered sugar, vanilla, and brandy until fluffy, melted over the warm pudding, creating pools of sweetness. The serving moment was theatrical, with blue flames dancing across the surface as brandy was ignited. Families gathered in wonder, watching fire burn off before slicing into the dark, fragrant dessert that connected them to centuries of tradition. Christmas goose was once the centerpiece of holiday tables before turkey claimed that position, offering darker meat and richer flavor that many families preferred. Preparing a goose required skill few modern cooks possess. The bird's thick fat layer needed careful rendering to avoid greasiness while keeping meat moist. Cooks would prick the skin repeatedly, roast the goose on a rack to let fat drip away, and collect precious drippings for other uses throughout the year. The rendered goose fat was culinary gold, perfect for roasting potatoes or frying vegetables. Stuffings ranged from simple bread and onion to elaborate mixtures featuring apples, chestnuts, or prunes. The bird emerged from the oven with crispy mahogany skin and meat that tasted of the season itself. Families served goose with roasted root vegetables, red cabbage, and gravy made from drippings. The tradition connected American tables to European ancestors who had celebrated with goose for centuries. Oyster stew appeared on Christmas Eve tables across America, a tradition combining simplicity with subtle luxury during the holiday season. The dish required nothing more than fresh oysters, butter, milk or cream, and careful attention to timing. Overcook the oysters and they turned rubbery, undercook them, and flavor stayed hidden. Cooks heated milk gently, added butter until it melted into golden pools, then slipped in oysters and their precious liquor just long enough for edges to curl. Salt, pepper, and perhaps Worcestershire completed the seasoning. The stew was ladled into warm bowls, each serving containing several plump oysters swimming in rich, briny broth. Oyster crackers floated on top, adding crunch to each spoonful. The tradition had practical origins. Catholics abstained from meat on Christmas Eve, making seafood the natural choice. But the stew also symbolized abundance, a moment of quiet celebration before the feast to come. Families passed this custom through generations, the simple bowl becoming sacred ritual. Lane cake was the southern belle of Christmas desserts, a towering white layer cake filled with bourbon-soaked fruits and nuts that made it legendary at holiday gatherings. The cake layers were tender and white, made with egg whites only, their delicate crumb providing perfect backdrop for the rich filling. The filling combined egg yolks, sugar, butter, raisins, coconut, pecans, and enough bourbon to make flavors sing. Some cooks added maraschino cherries for color. The mixture was cooked until thick, then spread between layers while still warm so it could soak into the cake. Fluffy white frosting covered everything, hiding treasures within until the first slice revealed those layers of golden, boozy filling. Lane cake was not everyday dessert. It was reserved for Christmas, weddings, and occasions worthy of the effort required. Named for its Alabama creator, the cake traveled across the South and became synonymous with gracious holiday hospitality that showed guests they were truly honored. Divinity candy was Christmas magic made visible, those snow-white puffs of sweetness appearing on holiday platters alongside fudge and pralines. Making Divinity required perfect conditions, low humidity, patience, and ability to judge exactly when hot sugar syrup reached the right temperature. Cooks would boil sugar, corn syrup, and water while beating egg whites until stiff, then slowly pour screaming hot syrup into the whites while continuing to beat. The mixture transformed gradually, going from glossy and thin to thick and matte, finally holding shape when dropped from a spoon. Pecans or walnuts studded each piece, adding crunch to the melt-in-your-mouth texture. On humid days, Divinity refused to set, causing heartbreak for cooks who had invested an hour of arm-aching work. When it succeeded, Divinity was ethereal, sweet, light, and impossibly tender. Church ladies brought platters to Christmas bazaars. Grandmothers made batches for grandchildren who watched in wonder as the candy came together through patience. Date nut bread appeared in Christmas kitchens when cooks wanted something special that wasn't quite cake and wasn't quite bread, a sweet loaf perfect for breakfast or afternoon tea. The batter came together quickly. Chopped dates were softened in hot water or coffee, then mixed with flour, sugar, eggs, and generous handfuls of walnuts or pecans. The loaves baked slowly in narrow pans, emerging dark and fragrant with tender crumb that sliced cleanly. Some recipes called for orange zest, others added spices, but dates and nuts remained constant. The bread improved after a day of resting, wrapped in foil while flavors melded. Families sliced it thin and spread cream cheese across each piece, the tangy cheese balancing concentrated sweetness. Date nut bread was proper food for company, served on good china with coffee or tea. Mothers made multiple loaves each December, keeping some for the family and gifting others to neighbors as edible expressions of holiday warmth and thoughtful generosity. Tom and Jerry was the hot cocktail that warmed Christmas gatherings when cold winds blew outside and families crowded into parlors and kitchens. The drink required its own special batter, a mixture of beaten eggs, sugar, spices, and sometimes rum that could be prepared ahead. When guests arrived, spoonfuls of batter went into special Tom and Jerry cups, followed by shots of brandy and rum, then hot milk to fill the cup. The drink was stirred quickly and topped with fresh nutmeg grated over the foam. Each sip delivered warmth, sweetness, and enough spirits to loosen conversation and laughter. Families owned dedicated Tom and Jerry bowl sets, often received as wedding gifts, that appeared only at Christmas. The ritual of making drinks became part of the celebration, with someone stationed at the bowl throughout the evening to serve arriving guests. Hotels and restaurants once offered Tom and Jerry during the holidays. Today, the drink has nearly vanished, remembered only by those who tasted its warming comfort. Japanese fruitcake had nothing to do with Japan. The name remains a mystery, but the cake itself was pure Southern Christmas tradition. 3 or 4 spice cake layers alternated with coconut-filled layers, the whole construction held together by a boiled white frosting, studded with fresh coconut and sometimes raisins. The spice layers were dark with cinnamon, allspice, cloves, and nutmeg, while the white layers stayed pale and tender. Between each layer went the filling, a cooked mixture of coconut, sugar, and sometimes crushed pineapple that added moisture and tropical sweetness. The finished cake was massive, often requiring a special stand to display properly at holiday gatherings. Slicing revealed the dramatic contrast between dark and light layers, each bite offering different flavors and textures. Grandmothers guarded their Japanese fruitcake recipes, passing them to daughters who continued the tradition. The cake required an entire day to assemble properly, but lasted through the holiday week. Charlotte Russe was the elegant Christmas dessert that arrived in individual servings, each one a small tower of Bavarian cream surrounded by ladyfingers and topped with whipped cream. The dessert required patience and skill. The cream filling had to be made from scratch, cooked custard folded with whipped cream and set with gelatin until it held its shape. Ladyfingers were arranged around the inside of molds, standing upright like soldiers guarding the creamy center. Once unmolded, the charlottes looked like something from a French pastry shop, impossibly refined for home kitchens. Families served them at Christmas dinner parties where impressing guests mattered. The cream was delicate, barely sweet, flavored with vanilla or sometimes a splash of rum. Each spoonful combined the soft cookie texture of ladyfingers with the airy richness of the filling. Charlotte Russe represented the height of homemade elegance, proof that American cooks could match European sophistication when the occasion demanded their finest efforts. Roasted chestnuts were the Christmas snack that filled homes with their distinctive sweet, smoky aroma during the holiday season. Street vendors once sold them from carts in every major city, but families also roasted their own over open fires or in the oven. The preparation required scoring each nut with an X to prevent explosion, then roasting until the shell split and the meat inside turned golden and tender. Peeling hot chestnuts was its own ritual, fingers working quickly to remove shells before the nuts cooled and became stubborn. The flavor was unlike any other nut, starchy and sweet with an almost potato-like texture that melted on the tongue. Families would gather around fireplaces, passing warm chestnuts hand to hand while Christmas carols played. The nuts also appeared in stuffings, soups, and desserts throughout the holiday season. Today, fresh chestnuts are hard to find, and the skill of roasting them has largely been forgotten. Those who remember the taste recall it as Christmas itself. Wassail was the Christmas punch that filled homes with the scent of warm spices and roasted apples, a drink meant for sharing with carolers and guests throughout the holiday season. The base was typically hard cider or ale, heated gently with cinnamon sticks, whole cloves, allspice berries, and slices of orange studded with more cloves. Small apples or crab apples were roasted until soft and floating, bursting when ladled into cups. Some recipes added sherry or brandy for extra warmth and celebration. The drink was served from large bowls, often ceramic or silver, that became family heirlooms passed down through generations. Wassailing itself was a tradition. Groups would travel house to house, singing carols in exchange for cups of the warming brew. The word came from Old English meaning good health, and toasting with wassail was believed to bring luck. Families kept the pot warm on the stove throughout Christmas Eve, refilling cups as guests arrived and conversation flowed. Persimmon pudding was the Christmas dessert that depended entirely on finding perfectly ripe wild persimmons, a fruit that rewarded patience but punished impatience with mouth-puckering astringency. Families in the Midwest and South knew to wait until after the first hard frost, when persimmons softened into orange globes of concentrated sweetness. The pulp was pushed through sieves to remove seeds and skin, creating a thick puree that gave the pudding its distinctive flavor, somewhere between dates and honey with hints of cinnamon. The batter was simple: persimmon pulp mixed with flour, sugar, eggs, butter, and spices, then baked until set and deeply caramelized. The texture was dense and sticky, almost like fudge, demanding to be eaten warm with hard sauce or whipped cream. Persimmon pudding appeared only at Christmas because that was when the fruit ripened. Families who knew good persimmon trees guarded them jealously. The dessert connected people to the land and seasons in ways modern cooking rarely does. Pfeffernusse were the spiced German cookies that appeared in Christmas tins across America, tiny rounds coated in powdered sugar that packed intense flavor into each bite. The name meant peppernuts, though pepper was just one of many spices. Anise, cinnamon, cloves, cardamom, and nutmeg combined to create cookies tasting like Christmas itself. The dough was stiff and dark with molasses, requiring muscle to mix and patience to roll into small balls. After baking, the cookies were hard, meant to soften over several days as they absorbed moisture. Traditional recipes called for aging cookies in tins for weeks, letting flavors meld. The powdered sugar coating added sweetness and made each cookie look like a tiny snowball. German immigrant families brought Pfeffernusse recipes to America, where they became holiday traditions in communities across the Midwest. Church bake sales featured them. Grandmothers made them by the hundreds. The cookies were meant for sharing, arriving in tins as gifts between neighbors. Moravian cookies were paper-thin spice cookies that required rolling dough so delicate it nearly disappeared, a Christmas tradition from North Carolina's Moravian communities that spread across the South. The dough was dark with molasses and fragrant with ginger, cinnamon, cloves, and allspice, rolled impossibly thin on floured boards until you could almost see through it. Cookie cutters shaped the dough into stars, trees, animals, and angels before baking transformed them into crisp, lacy rounds that shattered with each bite. The cookies were so thin that a dozen weighed almost nothing, yet their flavor was concentrated and intense. Moravian bakers took pride in achieving maximum thinness. The thinner the cookie, the greater the skill. Families would spend entire December days rolling, cutting, and baking hundreds of cookies for gift tins and holiday platters. The tradition connected American Christmas tables to 18th century German settlers who brought their recipes and customs to the New World. Suet pudding was the heavy, warming dessert that sustained families through cold Christmas seasons, a steamed cake made with beef suet that provided richness no butter could match. The suet was grated fine and mixed with flour, breadcrumbs, sugar, dried fruits, and spices, then packed into molds and steamed for hours until dense and fragrant. The fat melted during cooking, creating pockets of moisture throughout the pudding that kept it tender for days. Unlike modern desserts that aimed for lightness, suet pudding was meant to stick to ribs and provide warmth during the coldest months. Families served it with hard sauce, custard, or simply a drizzle of cream. The tradition came from England, where suet puddings had fed working families for centuries. American cooks continued making them through the early 20th century before vegetable shortenings replaced animal fats in most kitchens. Those who remember suet pudding recall its unique texture and satisfying heaviness that no modern dessert replicates. Ribbon candy was the Christmas confection that looked like frozen rainbows, thin sheets of pulled sugar folded into accordion pleats and colored in stripes of red, green, white, and gold. Making it required candy thermometers, marble slabs, and the courage to work with molten sugar hot enough to cause serious burns. Professional candy makers pulled and stretched the sugar while it was still pliable, adding colors and folding the sheets before the mixture hardened. The finished ribbons were impossibly delicate, shattering if handled roughly, and dissolving on the tongue into pure sweetness. Families displayed ribbon candy in crystal dishes, where it caught light and sparkled like decorations. Children were warned to look but not touch until Christmas Day, when the candy bowl became fair game. Each piece was unique, the folds and colors varying based on the candy maker's skill. Ribbon candy was pure celebration, too fragile and impractical for anything except special occasions when beauty mattered as much as taste. Popcorn balls were the Christmas treats that appeared at holiday parties and hung from trees as edible decorations, spheres of popped corn held together with molasses or sugar syrup. The process required freshly popped corn, no kernels, no old maids, mixed quickly with hot syrup before the mixture cooled and became unworkable. Cooks buttered their hands and shaped the sticky mass into balls, while heat made their palms tingle. Some recipes used molasses for dark, chewy popcorn balls. Others used clear sugar syrup for lighter versions that sparkled. Red food coloring made festive Christmas balls, while green created holiday trees when molded into cone shapes. The treats were wrapped in cellophane and tied with ribbons for gifting or display. Children helped make popcorn balls, learning to work quickly and tolerate sticky fingers. The tradition connected Christmas to harvest abundance, corn being the American grain. Though commercial versions exist today, homemade popcorn balls carried the warmth of kitchens and hands that shaped them. Cranberry conserve was the Christmas condiment that elevated turkey and ham beyond ordinary fare. A chunky preserve combining fresh cranberries with orange, nuts, and sometimes raisins. Unlike simple cranberry sauce from a can, conserve required cooking whole berries with sugar until they burst, then folding in orange zest, chopped walnuts, and diced apple for texture. The mixture was thick enough to hold its shape yet spreadable for biscuits. Families made conserve in large batches before Christmas, filling mason jars for gifts and storage. The flavor balanced tart cranberries with sweet orange and earthy walnuts, each spoonful offering different textures. Grandmothers served conserve in cut glass dishes, the deep ruby color glowing like jewels on the holiday table. The tradition transformed a simple berry into something worthy of celebration. Though cranberry sauce remains popular, the richer conserve has largely disappeared from modern tables. Stollen was the German Christmas bread that arrived wrapped in powdered sugar like a gift from old-world bakeries, a rich yeasted loaf filled with dried fruits, nuts, and marzipan. The dough was enriched with butter, eggs, and milk until almost cake-like, then studded with candied citrus peel, raisins, and almonds before being shaped into an oblong loaf meant to represent the swaddled Christ child. A rope of marzipan ran through the center, adding sweetness and almond flavor. After baking, the warm loaf was brushed with melted butter and buried under powdered sugar. Stollen improved with age, flavors melding over weeks as the bread sat wrapped in foil. German immigrant families brought Stollen traditions to America, where the bread became a Christmas morning staple in Midwest communities. Bakeries once sold Stollen by the pound during December. The bread connected families to ancestors across the ocean and centuries of tradition. Sugar plums were the Christmas confection that inspired visions in children's dreams, though few modern people know what they actually were. These weren't plums at all, but small round candies made by coating nuts or seeds in layer after layer of hard sugar syrup, a process taking days of patient work. The center might be an almond, caraway seed, or cardamom pod, surrounded by a hard candy shell that cracked between teeth to reveal the aromatic core. Making sugar plums required a special pan that rocked candies gently while syrup was drizzled over them, building up coats gradually. Each layer had to dry before the next was added. The finished candies were stored in tins and brought out only at Christmas, their jewel-like appearance making them decorative and delicious. The tradition dated back centuries to when sugar itself was precious. Sugar plums represented patience and willingness to spend days creating something fleeting and beautiful. Eggnog pie was the Christmas dessert that captured the season's signature drink in a slice, a creamy custard flavored with nutmeg, vanilla, and often a splash of bourbon or rum. The filling was essentially eggnog thickened with eggs and baked until just set, wobbling slightly when the pie emerged from the oven. The crust was typically simple pastry, though some cooks used graham cracker or ginger snap crusts for added spice. Fresh nutmeg grated over the top added both flavor and visual appeal. Families served eggnog pie chilled, often with whipped cream that melted slowly into the silky filling. The dessert was practical. It could be made days ahead and stored in the refrigerator, freeing oven space for Christmas Day cooking. For those who loved eggnog but wanted something to eat rather than drink, this pie delivered the same comforting flavors in a new form that satisfied holiday cravings. Syllabub was the frothy Christmas drink that preceded modern eggnog, a mixture of cream, wine, and sugar whipped until light and airy enough to float on top of glasses. The tradition came from England, where syllabub had been served at celebrations since Elizabethan times. American cooks adapted it using whatever wine or spirits were available, sherry, Madeira, or hard cider. The cream was whipped with sugar and lemon juice until it formed soft peaks. Then the wine was folded in gently to avoid deflating the mixture. Some versions were thin enough to drink, while others were thick enough to eat with spoons. Syllabub was served in special glasses that showed off the layers, frothy cream floating above the wine below. Guests would sip the wine first, then spoon up the cream. The drink was delicate and celebratory, meant for Christmas parties where elegance mattered. Few modern cooks know syllabub, though it once graced every proper holiday table. Figgy pudding was the Christmas dessert made famous by carols, though few singers knew what they were demanding when they refused to leave until they got some. This steamed pudding was dense with dried figs, breadcrumbs, sweet and spices, cooked in cloth-wrapped molds for hours until dark and fragrant. The figs provided sweetness and moisture that kept the pudding tender, while sweet gave richness that butter couldn't match. Brandy was usually added both to the batter and poured over before serving. Like plum pudding, figgy pudding was often set aflame at the table, blue flames dancing across its surface before being extinguished. Families made it weeks ahead, storing the wrapped pudding in cool cellars while flavors developed and deepened. The tradition connected American tables to English ancestors who had sung the same carols and demanded the same pudding for centuries, carrying beloved holiday customs across the Atlantic. Hard candy Christmas drops were the homemade sweets that filled glass jars and candied dishes throughout the holiday season, each piece a jewel of concentrated flavor and brilliant color. Making them required cooking sugar syrup to the hard crack stage, then adding flavoring oils and food coloring before pouring onto greased marble slabs. Working quickly was essential. The candy hardened fast and shapes had to be formed in minutes before it became unworkable. Cooks used special molds or simply dropped spoonfuls that flattened into irregular rounds. Peppermint, cinnamon, lemon, and clove were favorite flavors, each given a distinctive color so guests knew what they were choosing. The finished candies were stored between layers of waxed paper in tins, where they kept for weeks without losing their snap. Church bazaars and holiday exchanges featured these homemade drops, their handmade imperfections proving they came from someone's kitchen rather than a factory. Spiced nuts were the Christmas snack that filled bowls at every holiday gathering. Whole nuts roasted with butter, sugar, and warm spices until irresistibly crunchy and aromatic. Pecans and walnuts were favorites, though almonds and mixed nuts appeared too. The coating was simple: egg white whisked with sugar, cinnamon, and salt. But technique mattered greatly. Nuts had to be spread in single layers and roasted slowly, stirred frequently while the coating set into a crisp shell that shattered between teeth. The finished nuts were addictive, each handful disappearing faster than cooks could refill the bowl. Families made large batches each December, packaging some in cellophane bags tied with ribbons for teacher gifts and neighbor offerings. The aroma of roasting spiced nuts filled homes with the smell of the season, announcing that Christmas preparations were officially underway and the holidays had arrived. Ambrosia was the Christmas salad that appeared in cut glass bowls at every Southern holiday table, layers of fresh orange segments, shredded coconut, and sometimes other fruits dressed simply with their own sweet juices. The name meant food of the gods, and families treated it with appropriate reverence during the holiday season. Fresh coconuts were cracked and grated by hand, their milk saved for dressing. Oranges were peeled and sectioned carefully, all pith removed so only sweet fruit remained. Some versions added pineapple chunks, maraschino cherries, or miniature marshmallows, though purists insisted on oranges and coconut alone. The salad was assembled in layers, each visible through the glass, then chilled until flavors melded together. Children often helped crack coconuts and section oranges, learning holiday traditions through hands-on work. Ambrosia was served alongside heavy meats and rich sides, its freshness cutting through the richness of Christmas dinner. Marzipan fruits were the Christmas confections that looked almost too beautiful to eat. Miniature apples, pears, oranges, and strawberries molded from almond paste and painted with food coloring until they resembled the real thing in stunning detail. Making them required grinding blanched almonds with sugar into smooth paste, then shaping small pieces by hand into fruit forms that captured each variety's distinctive shape. Fine brushes applied layers of color, building up realistic blushes and shading that made each piece unique. Tiny clove stems and leaf shapes cut from green marzipan completed the illusion. The finished fruits were displayed on silver trays or packed in gift boxes lined with tissue paper, treasured for their beauty as much as their sweet almond taste. Creating marzipan fruits took hours of patient work, the kind of handcraft that showed recipients they were truly valued. European confectionery traditions brought this art to American shores. Mini sausages in barbecue jelly sauce were the slow cooker's claim to fame in the 1970s entertaining. Sweet, smoky, and sticky, these little bites were served bubbling hot straight from the pot. Hosts would pour in a mix of grape jelly and barbecue sauce, toss in the tiny sausages, and let time do the rest. The smell alone could pull guests toward the kitchen before they even took off their coats. It was the kind of dish that required no explanation. Everyone knew it. Everyone loved it. Each bite carried the cozy flavor of comfort food disguised as a party treat. Served with toothpicks or skewers, they brought warmth and laughter to cocktail hours and Christmas buffets alike. They represented everything the 1970s valued in food: convenience, creativity, and togetherness. No fancy plating, no complicated ingredients, just the joy of something that tasted like home. Scalloped oysters were a Christmas tradition in coastal communities where briny bivalves signified celebration and abundance. Layers of shucked oysters nestled between buttery cracker crumbs in shallow baking dishes, each layer doused with oyster liquor, cream, and butter. Seasonings were simple: salt, pepper, and Worcestershire sauce to enhance oceanic flavor. The casserole baked until tops turned golden while oysters beneath plumped and released juices into the cream. The result was rich and delicate, soft oysters against crunchy cracker layers. For families with New England or Southern roots, this dish carried generations of memory, appearing on holiday tables reliably as the tree itself. Children often developed their taste for oysters through this dish, familiar crackers making unusual protein approachable. The smell alone announced Christmas had arrived. Though fresh oysters remain available, scalloped oysters have largely faded, remembered now mainly by elders who associate the dish with their finest holiday memories. Glorified rice transformed leftover grain into a festive dessert salad that children begged for and adults secretly loved just as much. Cold-cooked rice was folded with crushed pineapple, miniature marshmallows, maraschino cherries, and whipped cream until it became unrecognizable from its humble origins. Some versions added chopped nuts or coconut for texture, while others kept the base simple. The dish needed thorough chilling, allowing flavors to meld and rice to soften in the creamy mixture. Served in crystal bowls, glorified rice looked almost bridal, pale and dotted with bright cherry red. The sweetness made it controversial as a side dish, yet families insisted it belonged alongside turkey and gravy. This was thrift elevated to celebration. using rice that might otherwise go to waste. Mothers passed down specific ratios, each family believing their version superior. Glorified rice represented an era when creativity with basics was celebrated, when making something from nothing was its own form of kitchen magic. Fried salt pork with gravy over toast was Thanksgiving morning protein using preserved meat to create richness families couldn't afford fresh. Salt pork, the preserved fatback that lasted months without refrigeration, was sliced thin and fried until crispy in cast iron skillets. The rendered fat was used to make gravy by adding flour and milk, creating creamy sauce poured over toasted bread. This breakfast provided essential calories and fat, helping families survive cold mornings before central heating. The salt pork was economical because it used pig parts preserved through salting to last through seasons. Grandmothers kept slabs in cool places, slicing off pieces as needed. The gravy stretched the meat to feed larger groups, with toast soaking up every drop. Children learned to appreciate this combination. Adults valued how the breakfast delivered energy without requiring fresh meat purchases. Salt pork with gravy was honest nourishment, proving preserved foods could create satisfaction. Orange fluff was the cloud-like confection that children circled back to throughout holiday meals, its sherbet orange color standing out among earth-toned dishes. Orange gelatin was dissolved and mixed with cottage cheese, whipped topping, mandarin orange segments, and miniature marshmallows until impossibly light and airy. The cottage cheese provided protein and subtle tang that balanced sweetness, while marshmallows added pockets of chewy texture. Chilled until set, but still soft, orange fluff was served in glass bowls where its sunset color glowed invitingly. Some versions added crushed pineapple or chopped pecans, but purists kept the base simple. The dish required no cooking and could be assembled days ahead, perfect for busy holiday schedules. Children often asked for orange fluff specifically, knowing it would appear at Thanksgiving and Christmas without fail. Orange fluff represented the era's love of convenience desserts dressed up as salads, occupying that sweet spot between side dish and treat. Sweet and sour red cabbage brought German heritage to American Christmas tables, its purple-red color adding drama to plates dominated by browns. Shredded cabbage was braised slowly with apples, onions, vinegar, sugar, and warming spices until tender and deeply flavored. The long cooking allowed sweet-sour balance to develop fully. Cloves and bay leaves added complexity, while apple pieces contributed natural sweetness. This dish was traditionally served alongside roast goose or pork, its acidity cutting through rich meats perfectly. The cabbage could be made days ahead and reheated, improving as flavors melded. Children often surprised themselves by enjoying it, the sweetness making the unfamiliar vegetable approachable. Sweet and sour red cabbage represented immigrant traditions that enriched American holiday tables, proving the best dishes traveled across oceans. Tangy cheese ring with strawberry preserves brought a touch of southern warmth to Christmas buffets across America. Bright orange cheddar was grated fine, mixed with pecans and spices, and shaped into a perfect ring. In the center went a glossy pool of strawberry preserves, ready for dipping crackers and spreading on bread. The combination of salty cheese and sweet fruit felt indulgent, festive, and entirely unique. It was a dish that caught the eye before it ever reached the taste buds, its colors glowing like holiday lights. Guests loved the surprise of flavors, a perfect balance of sharp, creamy, and sugary. This was food meant to bring people together, to encourage dipping, sharing, and laughter. Every bite carried the comfort of homemade Southern hospitality, reminding everyone that Christmas was about warmth, generosity, and joy. Creamed celery was the sophisticated cousin of other creamed vegetables, turning the overlooked stalk into something worthy of fine china and silver spoons. Cooks sliced celery on the diagonal and simmered it until tender, then folded it into rich white sauce enriched with cream and butter. Seasonings were delicate: white pepper, a touch of nutmeg, perhaps parsley for color. The celery retained gentle crunch even in the sauce, providing textural interest other creamed vegetables lacked. This was a dish for formal dinners and holiday gatherings, its mild elegance complementing rather than competing with richer offerings. Pale green and white colors added sophistication to tables heavy with browns. Some cooks topped creamed celery with toasted almonds, creating a gratin that bordered on indulgent. The dish required fresh celery at its crispest, making winter holidays the perfect occasion. Creamed celery has virtually disappeared from modern menus, a casualty of changing tastes that forgot how refined simple vegetables could become. Grits with cheese and fried eggs became Thanksgiving morning fuel that prepared families for hours of cooking and welcoming relatives. The grits were cooked low and slow, stirred patiently until creamy, then mixed with sharp cheddar that melted into golden richness. Eggs fried in bacon grease created crispy edges and runny yolks that mixed with the grits like natural gravy. This combination delivered protein and energy in portions generous enough to last through morning chaos. In Black Southern households, grits weren't just breakfast, but foundation food connecting families to their agricultural roots. Grandmothers seasoned them with salt, pepper, and butter. The cheese added calcium while eggs provided protein when meat was saved for dinner. Children scraped their bowls clean. Teenagers ate double portions before being sent on errands. Grits with cheese and fried eggs represented practical wisdom of feeding families well on limited budgets. Stuffed celery was the appetizer that kept hands busy and conversation flowing while holiday dinners finished cooking in crowded kitchens. Celery stalks were cut into uniform lengths, their natural curves creating perfect boats for various fillings. Cream cheese mixed with blue cheese crumbles was one popular option, while pimento cheese offered southern flair. Some hostesses piped the filling in decorative ridges, while others simply spread it before arranging stalks on trays. The preparation was simple enough for children to help, making it a task assigned to young hands eager to contribute. Guests would gather in living rooms, reaching for celery sticks between sips of punch. The cool crunch of celery against creamy filling provided textural pleasure that elaborate appetizers couldn't match. Stuffed celery represented the transition from everyday snack to party food. Nothing more than celery dressed up for company. Its disappearance from modern tables seems strange given its simplicity and timeless appeal. Salami cornet rolls were one of those appetizers that managed to feel elegant and homemade all at once. Thin slices of salami were spread with soft cream cheese, rolled tight around small pickles or olives, and chilled until firm. When sliced into bite-sized spirals, they looked like little pink pinwheels, a perfect symbol of the colorful, cheerful 1970s. They were a hit at every Christmas open house, easy to make in advance and impossible to resist. The mix of smoky meat, tangy cream cheese, and crisp pickle created a flavor that stood out among a sea of dips and crackers. It was food designed to bring people together, simple enough to share, fancy enough to serve on fine china. The rolls chilled overnight in fridges across America, waiting for the next big party or family gathering. On the table, they gleamed like edible ornaments, proving that even the humblest ingredients could feel special with the right touch. They were snacks that carried conversation, laughter, and memory, made by hand, served with pride, and eaten with joy. Hot German potato salad brought old-world tradition to American Christmas tables, its warm, tangy dressing a welcome contrast to cold, mayonnaise-based versions. Cooks sliced boiled potatoes while still warm, knowing they absorbed flavors better than cold ones. Bacon was fried crisp in cast iron, then removed while its fat became the base for a dressing of vinegar, sugar, and mustard. Sliced onions softened in the hot grease before potatoes joined the pan, tumbled gently to coat every piece. The bacon was crumbled back in at the last moment to preserve its crunch. Served warm in crockery bowls, this salad steamed on holiday buffets alongside cold cuts and roasted meats. The sweet-sour balance cut through rich holiday foods perfectly. German immigrant families passed down precise vinegar-to-sugar ratios, each household believing theirs achieved harmony. Children who normally resisted potato salad often loved this version, won over by the bacon and warmth. Hot German potato salad represented heritage on the plate, connecting American celebrations to European roots. Sweet potato souffle was the showstopper that made guests gasp when it emerged from the oven, puffed high and golden like an edible cloud. Unlike dense casseroles, the souffle required whipping potatoes with eggs separated carefully, yolks beaten into warm puree, whites whipped stiff and folded in at the last moment. The mixture was seasoned with cinnamon, nutmeg, and vanilla, sweetened with brown sugar, and sometimes enriched with bourbon. Baked in a straight-sided dish, it would rise dramatically, its top browning while the interior stayed impossibly light. Timing was everything. The souffle had to travel from oven to table immediately before it could deflate. Children pressed their faces to oven doors, watching the miraculous rise with wonder. The texture was unlike anything else, simultaneously creamy and ethereal, sweet but not cloying. Sweet potato souffle represented kitchen ambition, a willingness to attempt something difficult for the reward of witnessing that collective intake of breath around the table. Fried cornmeal hoe cakes with apple butter connected families to their agricultural heritage and survival traditions. The hoe cakes were mixed from cornmeal, water, and salt, then fried on hot griddles until golden brown with crispy edges. Apple butter made from fall apples cooked down with spices provided sweetness without expensive jam. This breakfast appeared on Thanksgiving because both cornmeal and apples were fall harvest products. Grandmothers made dozens of hoe cakes, stacking them high and keeping them warm under kitchen towels. The name itself carried history, referencing when field workers cooked cornmeal cakes on hoes over open fires. Children spread apple butter thick, enjoying the sweet tart flavor against earthy corn. Adults paired them with coffee, appreciating how the simple combination provided energy. Hoe cakes cost almost nothing but delivered satisfaction. They represented ingenuity of turning basic staples into something worth celebrating. Spiced crab apples were the garnish that elevated holiday platters from ordinary to elegant, their deep ruby color and clove-studded skins announcing celebration. Whole crab apples were simmered in sweetened vinegar syrup infused with cinnamon sticks, cloves, and allspice until they turned translucent and tender. The fruits were packed into jars with their spiced liquid and stored for weeks, improving as flavors concentrated. Come Christmas, they were arranged around roasts and hams like edible jewels, their glossy skins catching candlelight beautifully. The taste was intensely sweet tart, with warming spice notes that complemented rich meats. Some families made their own from backyard trees, while others relied on store-bought versions. Children often avoided them, but adults treasured spiced crab apples as essential holiday tradition. The jars themselves became gifts, wrapped in ribbon for neighbors. Spiced crab apples represented the artistry of preservation, autumn's harvest transformed into winter's ornament. Mint peas with butter were the bright green accent that added freshness to plates heavy with brown meats and beige starches. Frozen peas were cooked briefly, then tossed with butter and mint that transformed them from ordinary vegetable to something almost sophisticated. The mint provided unexpected brightness, its cool flavor cutting through rich gravies and heavy casseroles. The peas remained vibrant green, their color adding visual appeal to plates that desperately needed something fresh. Children who normally avoided vegetables often accepted mint peas, the familiar sweetness enhanced rather than masked by the herb. Some cooks added cream or lemon, though purists insisted butter and mint were sufficient. The dish required almost no effort, a few minutes of cooking and tossing, yet contributed significantly to the overall meal. Mint peas with butter represented the simple wisdom that sometimes vegetables need only gentle treatment to shine alongside more elaborate preparations. Marinated mushrooms were the secret weapon of every 1970s hostess who wanted sophistication without the stress. Tender button mushrooms soaked overnight in herbed vinaigrette, absorbing all the bright flavors of garlic, vinegar, and parsley. When served cold in glass bowls, they shimmered with oil and herbs, perfectly ready to sit alongside cheeses, olives, and cocktail onions. They weren't rich or heavy, but clean and refreshing, offering a break between the indulgent bites of bacon and cheese that ruled the table. The best thing about them was their make-ahead magic, prepared the night before, served straight from the fridge. They captured the decade's fascination with modern entertaining, quick, stylish, and efficient. Guests loved their tangy pop of flavor, and even people who swore they hated mushrooms would sneak back for seconds. Each bite tasted like something from a European cafe, a little elegant escape in the middle of a suburban holiday party. Marinated mushrooms might not have been the flashiest appetizer, but they were the quiet favorite that kept showing up year after year. Frozen fruit salad was the jewel of holiday buffets, its pastel sweetness providing cool contrast to hot, savory dishes crowding Christmas tables. Cream cheese was whipped with mayonnaise until smooth, then folded together with whipped cream, canned fruit cocktail, maraschino cherries, and miniature marshmallows. Some versions added crushed pineapple or mandarin oranges for extra fruit presence. The mixture was poured into loaf pans and frozen solid, then sliced into pink-tinged rounds that held their shape beautifully on lettuce-lined platters. The texture was unlike anything else on the table. Frozen yet creamy, sweet yet tangy from the cream cheese base. Children adored it, begging for extra slices, while adults appreciated how it could be made weeks in advance. The salad straddled categories, appearing sometimes with sides and sometimes with desserts. Frozen fruit salad represented the 1970s love of make-ahead entertaining, proving that planning could produce something genuinely delightful. Harvard beets brought deep crimson elegance to holiday tables, their sweet and sour glaze glistening like rubies under dining room lights. The dish took its name from the university whose color it matched, though the connection ended there. Cooks sliced cooked beets into rounds, then simmered them in sauce of sugar, cornstarch, vinegar, and butter until the glaze thickened and coated each piece. The result was simultaneously sweet and tangy, earthiness balanced by bright acidity. Some recipes called for orange zest or cloves, adding complexity to the straightforward preparation. The vibrant color made Harvard beets a visual dream, adding drama to tables dominated by browns and beiges. Children often resisted at first, but the sweet glaze converted many skeptics. This was practical cooking too, as canned beets worked perfectly fine when fresh ones were unavailable during winter. Harvard beets represented an era when vegetables were dressed up for company, transformed from everyday nutrition into worthy holiday companions. Homemade sausage patties made from pork scraps and sage-filled Thanksgiving kitchens with aromas announcing the holiday had arrived. Grandmothers ground leftover pork with seasonings, forming small patties that fried up crispy and savory. These weren't store-bought links, but homemade creations using every part of the pig, mixed with dried sage, black pepper, red pepper flakes, and salt. The patties sizzled in cast-iron skillets, their fat rendering out to create crispy edges while interiors stayed juicy. Served alongside eggs or grits, they provided protein-sustaining families through morning preparations. Making sausage from scratch meant controlling ingredients and stretching meat further than store-bought allowed. Children watched grandmothers work, learning techniques passed down through generations. The spices were measured by hand, creating unique family flavors. These patties appeared at Thanksgiving because holiday butchering provided fresh pork scraps, perfect for grinding. Pineapple cheese ball was the crown jewel of 1970s Christmas parties. Sitting proudly in the center of every holiday spread, it gleamed beneath the warm yellow glow of dining room lights. There was something almost regal about it, a golden orb of cream cheese, crushed pineapple, and chopped nuts rolled together into perfection. It was sweet but tangy, rich but light, a dish that could be spread across a cracker and make anyone feel like they were part of something special. Housewives took pride in shaping them just right, pressing chopped pecans into the sides until the entire surface shimmered. When guests arrived, the first thing they noticed wasn't the roast or the punch, it was the cheese ball. This dish symbolized care and presentation, a reminder that even in the simplest kitchens, creativity flourished. Every bite carried the flavor of holiday cheer and homemade charm, proof that you didn't need extravagance to feel luxurious. It wasn't just food, it was an event rolled by hand, crafted with love, and placed right where everyone could see it. A pineapple cheese ball wasn't complete until it was surrounded by buttery crackers, each one waiting to deliver that perfect mix of sweet and salty joy that defined a 1970s Christmas gathering. Butter beans with ham hocks brought southern comfort to Christmas tables, their creamy texture and smoky depth satisfying appetites like few vegetables could. Dried lima beans were soaked overnight, then simmered for hours with a meaty ham hock until both beans and meat surrendered to tenderness. The cooking liquid reduced into a rich pot liquor that coated every bean with silky, porky goodness. Some cooks added onion, bay leaves, or a pinch of sugar to balance flavors, though purists let the ham and beans speak for themselves. The dish required time more than skill. Long, slow cooking was the only secret. Served in deep bowls with cornbread for soaking up the liquor, butter beans with ham hocks could anchor a meal or accompany the main roast. Grandmothers in the South passed down their timing instincts, knowing exactly when beans reached that perfect creamy yet whole texture. The dish connected Christmas to everyday survival cooking, reminding families that humble ingredients prepared with care could grace any occasion. Baked cheese grits casserole prepared the night before allowed grandmothers to focus on Thanksgiving dinner, while breakfast took care of itself. Cooked grits were mixed with eggs, sharp cheddar cheese, butter, and milk, then poured into baking dishes and refrigerated overnight. Thanksgiving morning, the casserole baked until set and golden, filling kitchens with savory aromas. This breakfast could feed large groups with minimal morning effort. The eggs and cheese provided protein, while the grits delivered comforting carbohydrates. Families cut squares and served them hot, sometimes with hot sauce. The casserole represented forward-thinking meal planning. It could be prepared when time allowed, then baked when needed. Children loved the cheesy richness, while adults appreciated the practicality. Baked cheese grits casserole proved planning ahead created stress-free Thanksgiving mornings. Butter beans with ham hocks brought southern comfort to Christmas tables, their creamy texture and smoky depth satisfying appetites like few vegetables could. Dried lima beans were soaked overnight, then simmered for hours with a meaty ham hock until both beans and meat surrendered to tenderness. The cooking liquid reduced into a rich pot liquor that coated every bean with silky, porky goodness. Some cooks added onion, bay leaves, or a pinch of sugar to balance flavors, though purists let the ham and beans speak for themselves. The dish required time more than skill. Long, slow cooking was the only secret. Served in deep bowls with cornbread for soaking up the liquor, butter beans with ham hocks could anchor a meal or accompany the main roast. Grandmothers in the South passed down their timing instincts, knowing exactly when beans reached that perfect creamy yet whole texture. The dish connected Christmas to everyday survival cooking, reminding families that humble ingredients prepared with care could grace any occasion. Cheddar olive puffs were a quirky little wonder that perfectly captured the playful spirit of 1970s entertaining. They looked fancy, but anyone could make them, which was part of their charm. Each puff hid a green olive in its center, baked inside a shell of flaky cheddar dough until golden and crisp. Guests would take one bite, expecting cheese, and find a salty, briny surprise instead. It was strange, delightful, and utterly unforgettable. These snacks were served warm on glass platters, often right beside bowls of nuts and trays of deviled eggs. The smell alone was enough to fill a kitchen with comfort, melting cheese, butter, and a hint of something daring. They represented a time when home cooks loved experimenting, when recipes came from magazines promising to wow your guests in minutes. In their simplicity, they reflected the optimism of the era. Resourceful, creative, and just a little bit flashy. Every batch disappeared before the main course ever hit the table. Cheddar olive puffs were the snack version of the 1970s itself, bold, bright, and unapologetically fun. Creamed celery was the sophisticated cousin of other creamed vegetables, turning the overlooked stalk into something worthy of fine china and silver spoons. Cooks sliced celery on the diagonal and simmered it until tender, then folded it into rich white sauce enriched with cream and butter. Seasonings were delicate: white pepper, a touch of nutmeg, perhaps parsley for color. The celery retained gentle crunch even in the sauce, providing textural interest other creamed vegetables lacked. This was a dish for formal dinners and holiday gatherings, its mild elegance complementing rather than competing with richer offerings. Pale green and white colors added sophistication to tables heavy with browns. Some cooks topped creamed celery with toasted almonds, creating a gratin that bordered on indulgent. The dish required fresh celery at its crispest, making winter holidays the perfect occasion. Creamed celery has virtually disappeared from modern menus, a casualty of changing tastes that forgot how refined simple vegetables could become. Which old-school Christmas dish do you remember from family gatherings? Drop your favorite memory in the comments and share this with someone who needs a taste of the past. Hit like and subscribe for more forgotten holiday traditions.